This video is about exactly how long it will take you to grow hip length hair down to the exact months based on your current length. So if your goal is to get longer hair, just keep on watching. Hi my loves, welcome back, and if you are new here, welcome. Here in this channel we talk about relaxed hair growth tips, protective styling, and anything hair related. So if you know you're interested in this type of content, please consider subscribing to join the family. So in today's video, I'm going to be sharing with you guys how long it takes to grow your hair to hip length, waist length, or whatever your goal is. And without further ado, let's just get started. So in order to calculate how long it's going to take you to get your hair from your current length to hip length, waist length, or whatever your goal is, the first thing you want to do is to calculate your hair growth rate. Now usually your hair growth rate is going to range between 1/4 inch to 1 inch per month, and this is going to be determined by your genetics and the state of your hair, but mostly by your genetics. So your hair growth rate is going to be genetically programmed, but the scalp of your health can influence this. So if your scalp is healthy, you can maximize your hair growth rate potential, but if it's not healthy, this can be lower compared to what your hair growth rate is genetically programmed to be. So to make sure that your hair is growing at its maximum potential, you want to make sure that your scalp is healthy. Now to determine your hair growth rate, there are two methods I'd recommend. The first is through protective styles. Now when you install protective styles like box braids or mini braids, twists, cornrows, and things like that, it is very easy for you to calculate your hair growth rate. So in using this method, all you have to do is measure the new growth beneath the protective style you installed relative to the duration for which you carried the protective style. So if you carried the style for only 1 month, this is straightforward. All you just have to do is take a measurement of your new growth for that month. But if you carried your protective style for, let's say, 3 months, what you now have to do is get a measurement of your new growth and then divide it by 3. So basically you're going to take a measurement of your new growth while in the protective style and divide it by the number of months for which you carried the protective style. Now that's the first method of determining your hair growth rate. The second method is through relaxer stretches if you are a relaxer girly like me. So what you have to do is get a measurement of your new growth while in the relaxer stretch and divide it by the number of months you stretched your relaxers for. So let's say for example you went on a 6 months relaxer stretch, and at the end of the 6 months you measured your new growth and you got like 3 inches. What you don't have to do is divide the 3 by 6, which is the number of months you stretch your relaxers for, which is going to give you 0.5. So meaning your hair growth rate is 0.5 inches. So that's it for how to determine or how to calculate your hair growth rate. Now after getting your hair growth rate, the next thing you want to do is to get a measurement of your goal length. Now this is going to depend on you. If you want hip length hair, the length is going to be different. If you want waist length hair, the length is going to be different, and if you want bra strap length hair, the length is also going to be different. So this just depends on your goal, but for the purpose of this video we are going to be using mostly hip length. Okay, so you want to take a measurement from where your hair is currently to your goal length. So let's say for example your hair is currently at shoulder length and your goal is hip length. What you want to do is take a measurement from your shoulders to your hip. That is going to give you an idea of the length you need or the inches you need in order to get to your desired goal. So apart from your goal length, another thing that is going to influence this measurement is how tall you are. So that's your height. So two people may want hip length hair, but their goal length may be different because of their height. So if you are taller, the length is going to be more compared to when you are on a shorter side. So you want to make sure to take this into consideration as well. Okay, so I'm going to be giving you guys examples. So let's say you are starting from scratch, you are not even at shoulder length, probably you just did a big shop and you have a teeny weeny afro and you want to get your hair from that state to waist length. And after your measurement, let's say you got about 24 inches, and let's say when you calculated your hair growth rate from either one of the two methods I mentioned earlier, you got about 0.5 inches as your hair growth rate. Now what you're going to do is to divide your goal length by your hair growth rate. So if 24 inches is your goal length and 0.5 inches is your hair growth rate, dividing 24 by 0.5 is going to give you 48. Meaning it's going to take you 48 months to get your hair from your current length, that's from your teeny weeny afro, to waist length, and 48 months is about 4 years. Okay, so this basically means that to get from your teeny weeny afro to waist length is going to take you at least 4 years, and that's if you don't get a trim and if you are able to retain all the length, meaning you try as much as possible to avoid any form of breakage. Okay, so if you know this, when you are setting your hair goals, you would know what to expect. You would know that for you it won't be possible for you to get your hair from your current state to waist length in a year, because you have the numbers in front of you, you have done your calculation, you have done your measurements, and you know what to expect. It can take longer than this, for example by getting trims or if you get breakage and all of that, but you would know that at least it's going to take you 4 years to get from your teeny weeny afro to your waist length goal. So it can be faster than this if your hair growth rate is more than 0.5 inches, and it can be slower than this if your hair growth rate is less than 0.5 inches. So that's why you have to consider both your hair growth rate and your goal length when trying to set goals for your hair. Okay, so now I'm going to give you guys another example, and this time using hip length as the goal. So let's say you are starting from scalp length and your goal is hip length, and after your measurement from your scalp to your hip you got like 30 inches and your hair growth rate is 0.5 inches. Now using the same principle again, dividing 30 by 0.5 is going to give you 60. So meaning it's going to take you 60 months to grow your hair from your scalp to hip length, which is about 5 years. So if these are your numbers, you would know that in order to get your hair from scalp length to hip length, it's going to take you at least 5 years. Now this doesn't just apply to if you are starting from scalp length. The same principle also applies whether you are starting from shoulder length, bra strap length, or whatever length you are starting from. Okay, so let's say for example your goal is to get from shoulder length to hip length. What you don't have to do is take a measurement from your shoulders to your hip. So let's say for example after your measurement you got 18 inches, and let's say again your hair growth rate is 0.5 inches. So dividing 18 inches by 0.5 is going to give you 36. So meaning it's going to take you at least 36 months, which is like 3 years, to get from shoulder length to hip length. So it is actually very easy to know how long it will take you to get to your goal length by using this simple method, whatever length you are starting from and whatever your goal length is. So this will give you the minimum time it will take you to get to your goal length. Like I said, this is assuming you don't trim your hair and you try as much as possible to avoid breakage and retain all the length. So in order to get to your goal length as fast as possible, and in order to hit that within the time you calculated, you have to make sure to try and avoid breakage as much as possible and retain that length, because there is not so much you can do about your hair growth rate, because your hair growth rate is already programmed by your genetics. There are things you can do to optimize it, for example by making sure your scalp is healthy, shampooing your scalp, making sure it's clean, doing scalp massages and all of that. But this is going to make sure that your hair growth rate is optimized and reaching its full potential, but it's not going to increase it more than what is genetically programmed to be at. Okay, so since you have little or no control over your hair growth rate, you want to try as much as possible to retain length by preventing breakage. Okay, so yeah guys, that's how to know how long it's going to take you to get from your current length to your goal length. So yeah, and let me know in the comment section down below what your current length is and what your goal length is, and if you also have your measurements like your hair growth rate and your required length, you can also make sure to include them in the comment section down below so that we can calculate them together. Okay, so yeah guys, that's it for today's video. I hope you enjoyed it, and if you did, please don't forget to give it a big thumbs up. If you are new here and you aren't subscribed, please consider subscribing to join the family, and don't forget to turn on the post notification bell so that you'll be the first to get notified whenever I upload a new video. Okay, so yeah guys, that's it for today's video. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye.